Alright guys, it's Hardwire here. I just kind of wanted to make a quick video about my gadgets loadout that I'm using for controller since two trades have released. Um, I'm still kind of tweaking this. It's subject to change very much, especially things like my artifacts, because as you can see here, I've not got things like Claw of Alkund leveled because I was an idiot and decided to feed it. Same thing with my tetrahedron. And I'm still kind of questioning whether or not I should drop BOP and Brand. Um, but yeah, this is my current loadout. This is subject to change. This is what I've been using, and this is what I think has been working pretty well. Whether it's the best or not, I don't know. I can't really say. I would have to see what other people are running, what they think would work, stuff like that. Um, but without much further unnecessary talk, let's just get right into it. Starting off with your gear, obviously, I don't really feel like I need to say this, but having controller gear helps. Um, Stating the obvious here, but yeah. As for game mods, for your weapon socket, I took replenishing adapter. That extra proc of the extra proc of power does help. However, it's not necessary. This can be swapped out for ultimate blast adapter. You can run regular blast adapter. You can run absorption adapter for an extra shield. It's up to you. Kind of use whatever you think works. I would say absorption adapter is pretty nice if you don't think you need the extra replenishing or the extra power, and if you don't think you need, if you don't think you need the shield, then you can just go with extra damage. Head mod, I don't have it here. This is a kind of like a not very up-to-date tune. I've kind of dropped this tune since I switched to US, but ultimate supercharge mod is really nice. 15% supercharge back when you use any supercharge is really nice. Best head mod in the game, regardless of what role you are, what power you are. Definitely just be running that. Otherwise, take supercharge battle drone. Why not? 5% back is still nice. For your neck mod, escalating replenishing procs, this is the best option you could probably get on controller. Let's be real. 5% or 5% critical power chance for 6 seconds when you use a group power heal, which you're going to be doing a lot. So there's not really anything else worth running here. There's kind of just this. For your back mod, ultimate accelerated powers. This is awkward on gadgets. It's not as strong as it is on other abilities or on other powers rather, like quantum or hard light or mental or literally anything else. And I'll get into why that is in a few, but it's still nice to have because you're still resetting your stasis field if you're running it. You're still resetting your BOP if you're still running it. It can reset all of your shields. It's still a really handy thing to have. For your chest, I've gone with extended supercharge. The only other option I would take here is either Hearty or Ultimate Hearty, and that's kind of depending on if you think you need the extra supercharge, or if you think that, or if you're running, if you need the extra supercharge, then go with extended supercharge. Otherwise, if you've got Scrap 200, if you're running Scrap 200, which I will get into, or if you just think you don't need a supercharge, then go with Hearty or Ultimate Hearty. For your leg mods, only really one thing worth taking, that's critical prowess, 2.5% crit chance. Restorative mods, don't scale anymore. Like I've noticed I was only hitting like 17k over heal on my restorative water spouts on my water character, and that was in newest content. So 17k is obviously better than nothing, but it's not great. Plus, a lot of the restorative mods don't benefit the gadget controller. The only one that does is the sticky bomb, and sticky bomb's not that great. For your hands, don't take improved stealth. Sorry, take either max damage or ultimate max damage. Those are like the only two worth taking. You could take empowered channeling because there is a channel ability that we're using. You could also take improved stealth, but that's if you're running stealth, and that's not something I'd really recommend right now. A, because it's so unnecessary, but B, because The power drain's already bad enough as is with 2 trays. You don't want to add on to that by having an extra another 2 trays, because Gadget's Stealth also has 2 trays for itself. You can see here, Stealth also has 2 trays, which A, you're not even using in the first place, but B, going into Stealth and then doing a Stealth clip takes up a lot of power, and that's not really something you should be doing as a controller. You kind of want to preserve as much power as you can within reason, while also being at good effectiveness. Then for your feat, it's between Tumbling Master or Ultimate Tumbling Master, which is obviously better. I don't think I need to introduce that. You just roll. If you're running Ultimate Tumbling Master, you get a shield. It just lets you move a lot easier. I mean, like, this is really nice to do, to evade like mechanics, which there are going to be a lot of mechanics, especially in current content. You could kind of see it right there. That little red, these little red bars. Being able to Tumbling Master out of that is really helpful. The other option would be Explosive Block. Explosive Block's kind of nice in Blackest Night Elite. If your tank loses aggro of an ad in any way, shape, or form for whatever reason, and that ad goes to lunge you, you just hit your block, the ad will hit you, explosive block will proc, and then that ad will just go flying, and it will kind of tell the tank, hey, pick me back up so that your team's not going to die. For your buffs, it's between Vitamin Soder Cola, All Natural Soda Cola, and Bulldozer Soda Cola. Now, I don't have these updated. I believe, however, if you do have an updated Vitamin Soda Cola, it's going to be like 7k might buff to you. I don't know what the All Natural, the health buff is going to be from the All Natural. I think it might be like in around the 30k range. And then Bulldozer Soda is going to be a 7k dominance buff, and I'll get into why that's useful in a bit. And then obviously Compound Omega, 5% buff, 5% buff to most of your stats is really nice. For your utility belt, I format this similar to how I format my DPS trinket, or my DPS utility belt, sorry. I go Supply Drop, Orbital, Breakout Trinket, and then Swap Slot. Supply Drop doesn't matter right now, unless they bring out Elite Supply Drop in the near future. But for now, just take whatever you think looks nice. I take Mercenary Supply Drop just because I think it looks nice. That's kind of it. For your Orbital, it's between Athena Blade or Subjugator Blast. Now, if I remember correctly, Athena Blade does do like around 100 more damage than Subjugator Blast. I could be wrong. That could be changed, and it could just be, the same damage. But the main benefit of Subjugator Blast is it's more reliable. You don't have to worry about the enemy running out of your orbital, and you lose out on damage because the orbital from Subjugator Blast will just track them. And that 2 beams is nice for hitting 2 different ad sets. Whether that increases the damage or not, I don't know. I don't think it does. I know for a fact, however, that if 2 beams are on one enemy, or 2 beams are like in close proximity to another, you're only going to get 1 tick of damage. So, if 2 ad sets came together and those 2 beams were hitting target A and target B, both of them would be like hitting those 2 targets, you're only getting 1 tick of damage. I think I might have explained that badly, but yeah, hopefully I got my point across. Breakout trinkets just to clip things. I honestly wouldn't. It's also nice to be able to break out without having to use up power, but it's mainly just to clip things like a Supply Drop or Orbital. Now, nowadays, you don't need to clip. I mean, like, if I come over here, you can see that was fucking oh my god. Breakout Trinket is simply just for clips, while, being able to break out without using power is quite nice, but your main reasoning for using this would just be to clip abilities, and to clip, your orbital. Now, clipping your orbital isn't as necessary as it used to be. because I mean, if I come over here, that was a really fast animation just to cast your orbital. But you know, I mean, Hard Light Shield there has a pretty big, has a pretty long animation, so it helps being able to like break out of that, or you know, maybe this little ability there, the brand ability, if you are using brand. You know, being able to clip out of that, but you can just clip out of that with an ability anyway, so it's not like, you know, if I come over here and I just hit this guy with that, I can clip it and I'm still getting the damage out of it and the power from it. So you can clip it with abilities anyway. But however, you can clip your ally with it. I'll clip it with my Soda, as you can see there, just because that's like the best example I can do. But you can clip it with your breakout trinket as well. The only thing you can't clip would be OMAC circuitry. If you clip your OMAC circuitry early, you just won't get your OMAC circuitry and it'll go on cooldown. Speaking of OMAC circuitry, we are running the OMAC circuitry because if you pop it and we scroll down here, OMAC form, you get plus 5% critical weapon attack chance, which is quite nice because we are using our weapon attacks a lot, as well as plus 125% base health to yourself for 30 seconds, which helps us with our buffs. Now, when we're swapping, we would be swapping in our Troll Trinket, so that we're getting extra Vitalization for more power heals. We would also be swapping in a Henchman and our Trinket, or our Pet, sorry. In terms of pets, it's between either Motherbox Tier 3. Motherbox Tier 3, I think, is the best damage pet there is currently. So, you know, if you want a good damage pet, Motherbox Tier 3 would be it. This is obtained from Orion in Patchwork Themyscira, the Apocalyptic Invasion bounty. It's quite rare, so, you know, if you really wanted to and you've got the cash for it, you can just buy it off of a broker. The other options would be Heartbreak. Heartbreak is a debuff pet. I think first and foremost, it gives you a health buff, I want to say. You can see down here, Heartbreak will charge, stun, debuff, and damage enemies. Heartbreak will debuff the enemies, as I've just kind of mentioned, and that debuff is a 7% damage defense debuff. Sorry, and the good thing about this debuff is that it's going to stack with your regular controller debuffs. Some of the debuff sources in this game can stack, so you know 7% from Heartbreak will stack upon the defense debuff from BOP or Gauss Grenade or Stasis Field, as well as one of the artifacts we'll get into in a second. So it's nice to just stack debuffs. I think if you don't want to use Heartbreak, there is another option, which is Heartthrob. Heartthrob is another controller pet, and all it does is it just increases your health by 5%. Which is also nice for stronger buffs. So yeah, it's between those three pets, or obviously any other pet you want to take. You know, if you wanted to run Paradox Gazer, you could. For your Henchman, it's of my, if I remember correctly, Owen Tactical Assault Henchman is the best Henchman in the game currently. They do the most damage, and they also buff your damage by 10%. Now, you're a controller, so your damage doesn't really matter as much, but it's always nice to have that bit of a boost. Especially considering controllers can do a pretty good amount of damage. If you don't have these guys, you could also run... My next option would be to run the Hazmat Elites from Spring Event. They do a good amount of damage, and they also spawn bubbles, which will heal your team when they run through it. And if you don't have the Hazmats, then run the zombies from Raging Knight. The Raging Knight zombies will... There's like 5 of them, if I remember correctly. They all spawn in. They don't like die per se. When they do get taken out, they do respawn until the duration is ended. But they also, if I remember correctly, split the damage. I mean, I can kind of come over here and just chapter Raging Knight. Yeah. You can see here, you 25% of the damage you take will be sent to these henchmen instead, so you're going to be a bit tankier, and they also will taunt enemies to attack them instead of you, which is really nice. So I think if you want that, then you can go for that. Personally, I just run Neo and Tactical Assault. If you don't have any of the free elite henchmen though, your best bet would be the Volcano, the Lexical Security Bot henchman from the Volcano mining facility. It's a rare drop from Luthor. I'm pretty sure they're still the highest damage ally henchman in the game. But don't fully quote me on that. I've not seen like a tier list since Obsidian Chills, and Obsidian's tier list. Holy, Obsidian's tier list did say that the henchmen were the robot henchmen were the best. Otherwise, if you don't want to use that robot henchman, you could just use any other henchman that kind of like tickles your fancy, because ultimately they all are relatively close in damage. So, you know, if you're a Yellow Lantern, for example, or you maybe don't want the robots, you instead want like the Psyops henchmen, go for it, man. They're all fairly close in damage, so it doesn't ultimately matter. Okay, so in terms of your artifacts, there are only really 3 that you kind of want, or need, should I say. That would be Tetrahedron of Urgrund, so that's 2% of your health as might to your group. If you're on controller role, I think that's 4% of your health as might to your group, which is really, really strong right now, because, I mean, you don't have to be very smart at the game to understand that might's currently the ruling meta. So yeah, Tetrahedron definitely a must. Then next up would be Amulet of Rao. Amulet of Rao is definitely a must for every single controller in the game. Controller debuffs are 50% stronger. They apply to additional 7 enemies, and they also do damage over time. Not needed, that damage over time, but it's still quite nice. And then the only other artifact, and I don't have it leveled, is Claw of the Alkund. The only reason why I don't have this leveled is because I fed it like an idiot quite a while back now. But Claw of Alkund will give you and 7 of your group members 7% might, restoration, and dominance, as well as 5% crit chance and magnitude for 12 seconds. The only downside is it no longer power heals. It also increases your passive power regen from the controller roll by 20%. You know, if I come over here, kind of just scroll up to the controller. Here we go. Activating any superpower restores power to your group over time. And then also you get 3% vitalization per group member that has that buff on them for 12 seconds. Really nice. So yeah, definitely take those 3. The last 2 is kind of up to you. I find that controller arts, these last 2 controller arts are very situational or very optional. Kind of depends on how you want to build, or what raid you're running, or what your group's like. So you definitely have a lot of options here. The first 2, like the natural first 2 arcs that were like comboed together, that kind of made the gadgets what it was BOP and Brand. BOP gives you all 3 debuffs in 1 ability, as well as gives you your team power when they hit an enemy that's had all 3 debuffs on them. And it also doesn't stun, which is probably the best like thing it has. It just doesn't stun. However, the only downside to this is that all controller debuffs last 6 seconds rather than the initial 12. I don't think this is as useful as it used to be honest, because now that we've got 2 trays, it's not very hurtful. If I was to just get rid of like this, for example, and then like you get rid of BOP and Brand, and then run Stasis Field, P Darts, and Napalm, which is what we used to do, and then we'd have Distract here instead of Hardlight, and then Battle Drone here, and that'd kind of just be all it was just this. You would go like that, and that would pretty much be your entire rotation. And you'll just be clipping everything into defib like that. But now you can honestly drop, in certain instances, you could drop your healing debuff and then run something like Photon Blast, for example, for an ally, which we'll get into in a minute. So yeah, you really don't need BOP anymore. I find I just run it because I have it leveled up, and I kind of don't want to get rid of it. But yeah, that's up to you. We saw my loadout back out, and then last one was shield. That's it. Hard light ogre. So yeah, definitely not needed BOP anymore. Brand of Hecate is another good one. It's mainly just for damage. It's kind of better off if I show you what it does rather than kind of explain it. Artifact would be Brand of Hecate. Brand of Hecate, to put it plainly, when you apply a debuff on an enemy and then you use the ability that gives you, you will apply a mark on these enemies, and that'll give you a stack of both might and vitalization for each controller debuff on the target. So, if there's one debuff, you get one stack. If there's two debuffs, 2 stacks. 3 debuffs, 3 stacks. And this is up to a max of 24 stacks. Each stack, or when you get a certain amount of stacks, you also reduce the amount of power you use. So you can see down here, if I get 8 stacks, I've got 5% power reduction, or power cost reduction. 16 stacks would be 15% power cost reduction. 24 stacks, 25% power reduction. When you then tap melee to combo it, you will then summon a scythe that will damage up to 8 enemies that are marked by the brand for 34% of your vitalization and 5.2% of your might, and will then restore power to 3 group members, and this effect will increase for each debuff on the target. If you cull a target 6 times during the same debuff instance, the debuff will be removed. Meaning, because obviously if I was to use my initial ability here, it will refresh all the controller debuffs. And obviously because BOP lasts for 6 seconds, I've essentially got 6 seconds to cast this to then extend it back up to 6 seconds again. But I can only do this, 6 times? Yeah, I can only do this 6 times before it will completely remove the debuffs. So then you'd have to reapply debuffs. But it's really good for power. It's also really good for power reduction on your behalf, which I'll get into why I kind of run this currently later. You could probably kind of take a guess just from his first tray why that's the case. But yeah, brand is definitely a nice one. Another option, Power Ring is a route you can take, which I'm currently taking right now. Power Rings are really good art. I'm not gonna lie, it's not good to the point where it's a mandatory artifact. A lot of people like to say that it is a mandatory artifact. I disagree. I think Power Ring shouldn't always need to be ran, especially when there's certain options for certain scenarios. Like, if I was to run Claw here, I would take these two if I was in a really high power drain group. You probably won't run into those, at least if you're running with a full group of water players right now, because of Flood of Power, or whatever the ability the supercharge is called, that kind of restores their power. But this is definitely a good power healing combo. The Power Ring, what the Power Ring does is, at 200, when you give your group members power, you have a 60% chance of powering up the Avatar of Fear for 45 seconds, with a cooldown of 60 seconds. When the Avatar of Fear is up, it will kind of shoot out a beam. I will kind of see if I can showcase this. There you go. You can see here who he's shooting the beam. Will you shoot a beam at this guy? No, he won't. Okay. Thanks, Parallax. Good job, man. But he will shoot a beam, as you can kind of see there. And that beam will... Not only will it apply an 8% defense debuff, which again stacks with not only Heartbreak, but your basic controller debuff anyway, but it also restores 10% of your power and 5% of your supercharge, which is really strong when you consider how much it's attacking. it gets really good. And this is like a supercharged gen powerhouse. Again, I would kind of take this over maybe like BOP or brand if you're in a really high powered, if you're not in a high powered cost or high power drain group. But that's optional. Another option I'd take, Pages of Black, which I'll kind of explain now why we've been talking so much about dominance. Currently, there's a kind of way of building where you're building towards your group supercharge, your battle drone. Battle drone is obviously a group shield, and dominance, it increases the amount of health your shields have. And so you can build your dominance really high. I mean, right now I've got 141k dominance, and that's with augments, to be fair. Yeah, I've got 141,000 dominance, and this is important for shield health, which in some content is kind of necessary. Probably less necessary now, since we've got a lot of water healers going around. Because water healers are going to be out enforced now that we've got 2 trays, because that means you can EOG spam and spam all your shields to teams. But I would still say that this is a viable route to take. The only issue on gadgets is that the Ultimate Accelerated Powers mod will not reset Battle Drone, because Battle Drone isn't for some reason considered a shield by the game standards. I'm assuming because it's only giving a shield and controller role. But yeah, Battle Drone can't be reset, and so you're kind of at a disadvantage in that scenario, or in that case, over literally every other controller power. Every other controller power can get their group shield reset, but gadgets with Battle Drone. I wouldn't say it's too big of a worry. I know some people kind of like to say that it's kind of it's kind of, how do I put it? A big deal. That's the word I'm looking for. A lot of people like to paint the whole not resetting group shield as a big deal, which to an extent it is. I think if you're trying to build that route, you're better off playing something like Mental, for example, because Mental's got the strongest group shield in the game, if I remember correctly, in terms of pure health. But that's something to look out for. It's not that big of a deal in my opinion. But yeah, Pages of Black, you're going to take 10% damage at max stacks per second, but you're going to be getting 30% bonus vitalization, precision, and defense, as well as it doesn't tell you here, and I can't showcase it, but it also gives you 30% extra dominance, which is a hidden stat. It does. I don't know why. And it also gives you 45% incoming healing and incoming might, which is quite important. Incoming healing is pretty important because it means you're getting more heals. And you can obviously stop this from damaging you with a weapon buff, which will give you 35% extra precision, as well as a shield, which will do 20% of the damage reflect of your precision back to the enemies, as well as give you immunity. The last option I would say is Scrap of a Soul Cloak. I don't have it here, but Scrap of a Soul Cloak is good for the exact reason why I said that Gadget's battle drone isn't that great, and that's just because it's reducing the cooldown, meaning you can use it more often. Bear in mind, it's like a 22.5% cooldown reduction. So you're taking battle drone from a 30-second cooldown to like a 23. Yeah, 23-second cooldown. So yeah. But it was also giving you 7% supercharge back at 200, as well as increased SC, supercharge gem with abilities, which is still really nice. If you're taking scrap, I would say drop extended supercharge for Hearty, so you can get more health. But again, that's kind of a situational thing. I would say if you're running Pages of a Black, you can either take scrap or Power Ring, or you can run Power Ring and scrap. Go wild with the combos. But yeah, right now I am running BOP, Brand, Rao, Power Ring, and Tetra. I will be dropping Power Ring for Claw once I level Claw up. Looking at allies, for combat, there's only two choices worth taking, and that's between John Constantine, who is the best combat ally. I can't show you here, but at maxed, he is an 18% might buff to everybody stood in the ring. And to kind of make this even better, this stacks. So if you've got everybody's John Constantine up, you're going to get 8 instances of 18% might, all stacking, which is crazy strong. The alternative, if you don't have Constantine, is Death Metal Batman, who I'm using right now because he's just a higher level. Death Metal Batman at max will give you it will debuff the enemies for 25% of their healing, 10% of their attack, and 10% of their defense. And all of this stacks with powering. It stacks with the controller debuff. It stacks with Heartbreak. It's really good. Now, for support allies, there's only one mandatory ally, and that's John Stewart. John Stewart at max will give your shield plus 35% extra health. And then, also, based on the number of allies shielded, you're going to get a vitalization buff up to a 16% buff, which is a really good shout. And this helps with that shield playstyle I was just on about. Your next option is between one of two options. It's either General Zod for Phantom Zone Touch, which, if we take a look here, Phantom Zone Touch plus 3% might to your team. All you have to do is sacrifice 1% of your vitalization when you use a group power heal. Or you can do Batman Who Laughs for Toxic Encore. Toxic Encore is when the enemy is below 45% health, you can use a finisher and it will proc a card. And then once you use your finisher again, you're going to give them a 7% defense debuff. And again, this stacks with Death Metal Batman, Heartbreak, Controller debuff, as well as powering. Really good. I will say, if you wish to, swap these allies in. That's your best bet to get the best of both worlds. If you don't want to swap them in, kind of use whichever you think you'd like to use more. But yeah, those are the ally choices. You could also use Oracle or Cyborg if you don't have either of these and you just want something, you're running out of power. Skill points. First and foremost, take all of your weaponry. That would be martial arts and brawling. I would also say it could be worth getting the entirety of bow as well as dual wield with flurry shot combo for single target. Or if you've got low skill points, take hand blast into solar flame. Super speed, I take speed force, dash attack, and then the innates, just because extra power back is nice, as well as extra CC resistance. Iconics, hard light shield, and starbolt are kind of like the only two I would say are mandatory, quote unquote. I take mesmerizing lasso for certain instances, like Olympus, for example. I know there's not anything recently that's like this, but Olympus, for example, so you can pull the healers away from the group. And then Word of Power can be nice for increased incoming power to your team. I don't think that's great. I don't think that's as necessary. You can kind of see I'm not even running it here. Stat points, focus superpowered, take the maxed out critical power chance and magnitude. And then I would say focus into vitalization. I've gone health, and I'll get into that in a second. Vitalization, health, and dominance would be your main three. And that's kind of it. Now, for the loadout, I take Bird Blitz, Defib, Blood Moon Brand, Stasis Field, Hard Light Shield, Starbolt, and then Battle Display, Photon Blast, Neural Neutralizer, Holographic Decoy, Dash Attack, Battle Drone. This is very much mix and match, kind of go what you want. You could go something like this. If you don't have BOP, you can go either Gauss Grenade and P-Dart with, you could go, I don't really know, to be honest. You could put in another shield, like Distract, and go like this. Or you could drop Distract, get Napalm Grenade for the healing debuff. Or you can drop, you could drop Battle Display for, not Taser Pool, sorry. You could drop Battle Display for Mesmerizing Lasso. Or you can drop Neural Neutralizer for Mesmerizing Lasso. I have Holographic Decoy in here to kind of mini taunt. You can see it kind of taunts, and it also does the brick effect where you're kind of splitting damage to it. It also taunts enemies, which is nice. for certain content like God of Monsters on the Colosseum bosses. Neuro Neutralizer, I take this over Distract just because I feel like Neuro Neutralizer is a better like shield, to be honest. Battle Drone, self-explanatory. Dash Attack's a really good one because it helps you get around. Like if I'm, here doing or if I'm here and a mechanic pops up, I'd like to be able to dash attack over there because I don't have quantum tunneling. And you can just dash attack over to the mechanic and grab it. It's really nice. And then I take Starbolt for what should be an obvious reason. It's just really good power gen, or supercharged gen, sorry. And since I'm running Blood Moon brand, or brand, sorry, of Hecate, I can reduce the power cost of it, meaning I can use it more before I have to actually cast it, and then I'd still have power left over to support my team. And I think Photon Blast is obviously for Batman Who Laughs. I'm kind of messing this up here. But yeah, Photon Blast is for Batman Who Laughs. Battle Display would be just to buff your prec for some like buff your weapon damage for extra damage. Not necessary. I think that is it. You could take Word of Power instead of Dash Attack, honestly. Or you could take, maybe Anesthetic, sorry, for extra self-sustain, or you can take Neo Venom Boost if you wanted to. Up to you. You could also drop Holographic Decoy, for example, and you could throw in Nemesis Lasso. There is a lot of options you could do here. But, yeah. That's my loadout that I'm running currently. Again, like I said at the start of the video, it is subject to change, so don't expect this to be like a set in stone, the best meta controller loadout, because this is all subject to change. This is just what I'm running right now, but this should be a decent baseline. Change it as you see fit. I think the second controller was like very not as impacted in terms of the second loadout, because the second loadout is mainly just so flexible. You could even run something like Taser Pool, Suppressor Turret, Spore Pod here. I'm going to run Fear Gas instead though. Like Spore Pod here. And you could go Stealth, and you could kind of set up this bar for a DPS bar. Photon, and then whatever here, and then you put your stealth clip like Tornado Pool, Cryo or Cryo Foam, Battle Display, Suppressor Turret, etc., etc. Use what you think works best. If you want to use the second bar as a DPS bar, use it. If you want to use it as a utility bar like I do, go ahead. Play around with it. Make it your own. But yeah, that's what I'm running. This is my entire loadout. If I ever do change it and I find like better combos or where other things I think are worth using, I'll let you guys. I'll post a follow-up video. I'm sorry for kind of trying to get through this as quickly as possible. It's really late. I'm trying to get to sleep. I say this as if I'm not going to have to be editing this video anyway. But yeah, I kind of sped through this just to try and get it done as quickly as possible. If you feel like you are uncertain about some things, you can always go back. I will obviously have things timestamped. While I'm kind of like, I'm forgetting stuff right now. But yeah, that's my loadout. So go ahead, use it. Run SFFE with it. Run B&E with it. Whatever. Have fun, because I honestly I wasn't a big fan of these two trays, and to be honest, I'm still not entirely a fan of it. I think it's a little bit detrimental, if I'm being honest. At least if they're not making content harder in the future. But it is pretty fun to use if it's not a little bit broken. So go ahead and have fun with it, man. But yeah, that's the video. Thank you for stopping by.